In March 2021, a 400-meter cargo ship got stuck sideways in a canal. It took 6 days to free it. In those 6 days, an estimated $9.6 billion worth of goods stopped moving. Every single day. By the time the Ever Given was freed, over 400 ships were waiting to pass through. The queues stretched 100 kilometers into the Mediterranean and Red Seas simultaneously. Car factories in Germany ran out of parts and shut down. Medical equipment couldn't reach hospitals in Europe. A Swedish furniture company publicly warned customers it couldn't say when anything would be delivered. One ship, one canal, 6 days. The news called it a freak accident. But here's what the coverage missed entirely. The Ever Given didn't break the global supply chain. The global supply chain had been broken for decades. The Ever Given just made it impossible to ignore. We decode the systems most people never see, until it's too late. Why they rise, why they fail, and what the patterns reveal about strategy and power. This is Second Move, the logic behind the outcome. Subscribe to see 3 steps ahead. To understand why a single stuck ship could paralyze the global economy, you need to understand something most people don't think about. 90% of everything you own, your phone, your clothes, your food, your furniture, traveled by sea at some point in its journey to you. Not some of it. 90%. The modern supply chain is the largest coordinated logistical operation in human history. Roughly 100,000 ships moving 11 billion tons of cargo every year across every ocean on the planet. It is extraordinarily complex, and for 50 years the people who built it made one consistent choice above all others. They chose efficiency over everything else. That choice is where the failure begins. The machine that runs global trade was built on 3 structural dependencies. Remove anyone, and the whole system stalls. Dependency 1, the container. Before 1956, loading a ship was chaos. Dock workers carried individual crates, barrels, and sacks by hand. A single ship might take a week to load. Theft was rampant. Damage was constant. Then, an American trucking entrepreneur named Malcolm McLean had an idea. Instead of loading cargo, load the boxes the cargo was already in. The standardized shipping container changed everything. Loading times dropped by 97%. Costs collapsed. By the 1980s, global trade had exploded. But it also created the first dependency. Every port in the world now needed specialized cranes, terminals, and infrastructure designed specifically for containers. If that infrastructure fails, there is no backup. Dependency 2, just in time. In the 1970s, Toyota pioneered a manufacturing philosophy called just-in-time production. Keep no inventory. Order parts only when you need them. Have them arrive exactly when production requires. It worked brilliantly. Factories became leaner, storage costs evaporated, cash flow improved, General Motors adopted it, then Ford, then every major manufacturer on the planet. By 2020, the average car factory held less than 4 hours of parts inventory on site. Think about that. 4 hours. If a single delivery is delayed by a morning, production stops. Just-in-time manufacturing had optimized out every safety buffer in the system. Dependency 3, single source everything. Companies moved production to wherever it was cheapest, primarily China, Taiwan, and Southeast Asia. By 2021, Taiwan produced over 90% of the world's most advanced semiconductors. A single country, a single product category. No meaningful alternative. China manufactured 70% of the world's antibiotics. The port of Shanghai handled more container volume than the entire continent of North America. One factory, one port, supplying the world. The system wasn't just efficient, it was brittle. Here is the failure point. The global supply chain had been engineered to run at maximum capacity with zero slack. No spare ships, no spare ports, no spare inventory, no spare time. In engineering, systems designed with no redundancy are called fragile systems. They perform brilliantly under normal conditions. They break catastrophically the moment anything goes abnormal. The Ever Given didn't run aground because of negligence. Investigators found it was caught by a sudden sandstorm that reduced visibility to zero, while a 40-knot crosswind pushed the 220,000-ton vessel sideways faster than its rudder could correct. A freak event. A 1 in 10,000 chance. But in a system with no redundancy, a 1 in 10,000 chance is a catastrophe. The alternative route, around the Cape of Good Hope, Add 6,000 kilometers and 9 extra days of sailing. At $30,000 per day in operating costs per ship, that's $270,000 extra per vessel. So ships waited. And while they waited, factories ran out of parts, retailers ran out of stock, shelves ran empty. But this was just the trigger. COVID-19 had already been pulling at the same threads for 12 months. In early 2020, when COVID hit, factories across Asia shut down. Shipping companies canceled orders and reduced capacity. Why run half-empty ships? Then demand exploded in ways nobody predicted. Locked-down consumers stopped spending on services and started buying things. Exercise equipment, home office furniture, electronics. More things than they had ever bought before. Every node in the network seized simultaneously. Then the semiconductor shortage hit. A semiconductor chip costs between $1 and $500. It is the size of a fingernail, and it is inside almost everything manufactured in the modern world. When Taiwan's TSMC was hit by a combination of drought, COVID protocols, and surging demand, output dropped. General Motors shut 9 factories. Ford lost an estimated $2.5 billion in revenue in a single quarter. Toyota cut global production by 40%. Not because of a war, not because of a financial collapse, because of a chip the size of a fingernail. In the United States, the average price of a used car increased by 30% in 2021. Not because of inflation, because new cars couldn't be built, so people competed for the used ones that existed. Ordinary people, teachers, nurses, delivery drivers, paid thousands more for vehicles they needed to get to work. That's what systemic fragility looks like from the ground level. Every story about the supply chain crisis of 2021 blamed something different. COVID, the Ever Given, port workers. They were all real. None of them were the cause. They were the triggers. The cause was a system that had spent 50 years eliminating every buffer, every redundancy, every safety margin, in pursuit of the last fraction of efficiency. Most people stop at the visible failure. Find the event, find the villain, fix the event, fix the villain. But the supply chain didn't fail because of an accident or a pandemic. It failed because it was designed to fail the moment anything went wrong. Resilience and efficiency are opposites. Every buffer you remove makes the system faster and cheaper, and more brittle. Every redundancy you cut saves money until the day it doesn't. The global supply chain was the most efficient logistical system ever built, which also made it the most fragile. In energy grids optimized for average demand, not peak stress. In financial systems leveraged to the point where a 3% drop means insolvency. In any organization that confused being lean with being strong. In any organization that confused being lean
Everyone plays
with being
the first
strong.
move.
The failure point is never the accident. It is
Subscribe to
always the
Second
system
Move.
that left no room for one. If you want to understand how the same logic destroyed one of the most powerful companies in American history, that video is here. Second Move.